Om Jnanatirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurinmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. What shall we talk about? Any suggestions? Salaha. In suggestion. Krishna? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These are some suggestions. What's the difference between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna? No difference. Just that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most munificent. Mahavadanya. He is Mahavadanya. And when we pray to him, we offer respects to him as Namo Mahavadanyaya. We offer a Namaha to him. Krishna is a reservoir of all good qualities. Gunanidhi, I was going to say that. Gunanidhi, that's the name for Krishna. It means he's a reservoir of all good, all desirable qualities. He's actually a reservoir of all undesirable qualities also. He directly says in Bhagavad Gita, Dyutam chaliyatam asmi, I am the gambling of cheats. Mrityu sarvaharaschaham, I take everything away in the form of death. But anything which seems bad in relation with Krishna is good. Krishna is the greatest cheat. See, talking about Krishna, even the speaker's getting excited. Even the inanimate objects. You got stunned in ecstasy, so you can't speak. Yeah. We hear when Krishna plays his flute, the Yamuna stops flowing, and the rock starts melting. So like that, the speaker started making a noise, and the translator stopped making a noise. Unfortunately, it's not due to prem, but we're waiting for that day. We are waiting for that day. Kabe hobe bolo shede nama amar aparad haguchi shudhaname ruche kripa bale hobe hridaye sancha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays that when will that day be mine, when my offences ceasing, taste for the holy name increasing, when in my heart will your mercy shine, when will that day be mine? So Krishna is very kind. He's especially famous as Bhaktavatsala, which means he has an affectionate, nourishing attitude toward his devotees. We find in the Bhagavatam so many narrations of Krishna and his avatars. And from these narrations, we learn that Krishna is very powerful, he's very learned, he's within and without, he's within everything and everything is within him. We learn so much about Krishna. But the main quality, if we analyze, we'll find the main quality of Krishna that is demonstrated in all the narrations in the Bhagavatam is his Bhaktavatsala, his affection for his devotees. And actually, he's very kind even to the non-devotees. Somehow or other, if someone comes in contact with Krishna, they are benefited. All the soldiers on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were killed by Krishna, according to Krishna's plan. Yojana. So, but because they died in the presence of Krishna, they all achieved liberation. Krishna is very kind. This material world is very cruel. How this material world is going on, jivo jivasya jivanam. One living being is devouring another, is living at the expense of another. So, in this human form of life, we should hear about Krishna, and in this way, reform our consciousness from cruel consciousness to Krishna consciousness. Krura Chaitanya to Krishna Chaitanya. You won't say that? Krura Chaitanya to Krishna Chaitanya? You can't? Yeah. This material world is, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, is not a fit place for a gentleman. So this we learned from Srila Prabhupada. Everything we learned about Krishna, we learned from Srila Prabhupada. In India, people, they may learn something without learning from Prabhupada. They may just, because of the culture, they may learn something. But the problem is they learn, what they learn about Krishna is all mixed up with all kinds of strange ideas. So then again, they have to relearn it properly from Prabhupada. Yeah. When you're coming in this village area, your Telugu, you can't mix it with English. You have to remember the Telugu words. So we are recommending to everyone, you learn about Krishna from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is the particular representative of Krishna in the world in the modern age. And in his books he has presented the complete science of Krishna. So please read Srila Prabhupada's books. And also, or also if you can't read, hear from persons who are immersed in the knowledge in those books. Now something happens when you read Prabhupada's books. Something takes place. That you learn that everything else that you learned up to date is all wrong. And that everyone in the world is totally insane. Actually, some people, they see that even before they read Prabhupada's books. And that's why they start reading Prabhupada's books, because they're the only sane books in the whole of the universe. And what happens is, by reading Prabhupada's books, people, they lose all their enthusiasm for becoming happy in this material world. Everyone in the world is, they're completely dedicated to being happy within this material world. And when you read Srila Prabhupada's books, you become convinced that there is no happiness in this material world. Or as Bhavananda Goswami, as he was at that time, once said, there are only two sources of happiness in this material world: having sex and passing stool. Mala Visarjanam. It sounds like something very high class, but it's Swaha. No, we shouldn't say Swaha for that, but so they're very dangerous books, actually. Srila Prabhupada said that, he said, I'm surprised the governments don't ban me for what I'm saying, for all the things I'm saying. Prabhupada said, I'm surprised that the governments are not banning me. Because Prabhupada openly writes in his books, and they're widely distributed, that it's a whole society of animals, and the biggest animals are voted to be the leaders. Oh, we're supposed to be talking about Krishna. What happened? We were supposed to be talking about Krishna. What happened? All of a sudden we're talking about animals and stool and all this kind of thing. Well, Srila Prabhupada addressed this topic himself when he was lecturing on some of the first verses of Bhagavad Gita. What is that? Atra Shura Maheshvasa Bhima Jana Samayuti. What's the next line? Chaitana Yuyadhana Viratascha Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha. I think it was that verse, Prabhupada. So he said that. Now what's this got to do with Krishna? It's talking about some kings, some fighters on the battlefield. And Prabhupada said, because it's in relationship with Krishna. So we can cover all topics in relation to Krishna. So we're not just saying that the leaders are like hogs, dogs, camels and asses. Anyone can say that. Anyone can just call leaders bad names. But the point is Shvavid Vara Hushtra Karai Sangstuta Purusha Pashahu Nayad Karna Pato Petas Nayad Karna Pato Petas. Jatu nama gadagrajaha. That's it. Yeah. So this verse, which Prabhupada often quoted from Bhagavatam, says that people who are like hogs, dogs, camels and asses, and the particular word for hog there is stool-eater, shvavit. People who are like stool-eating hogs, dogs, camels and asses, they praise others who do not glorify the name of Krishna. People who are like dogs, hogs, camels and asses, stool-eating hogs, they glorify other people. They glorify people who do not glorify Krishna. So, if people praise, for instance, Sachin Tendulkar or Sonia Gandhi, they are the people who praise these famous people. According to the Bhagavatam, they are like hogs, dogs, camels and asses. Because they should be praising Krishna. Because human life is meant for God realization. So if we praise other human beings because they are better, they're considered great human beings, but we don't praise Krishna, then that is just like in a pack of dogs, there's the biggest dog, and the other dogs, they're submissive to that big dog. So by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, the result should be that one becomes uninterested in material life, which is a problem if you have wife, children, home, job and all these things. Because, you have to go on working to support all these things. And therefore, that's one of the reasons Srila Prabhupada wanted to make these rural Krishna conscious projects. Sangathan, where devotees can live together simply and discuss about Krishna and chant Hare Krishna without having any big ambition to be have a big position or any such thing. Or people, they're interested to get a big house. But that big house is their prison. They don't see that's their prison. Because they have to bring money to maintain it all and pay for it all. And they are bound by social pressure to act in a way that the owner of a big house is expected to act. They're tied up by their material attachments. But one who lives simply is free. Saral, he doesn't have any big responsibilities. He doesn't have any big profile to maintain. He doesn't, he doesn't care whether he doesn't have to have like a 5,000 rupee dhoti or something. It's just some simple cloth. So I think he could get a 5,000 rupee dhoti, silk with gold jari. He doesn't, and a spiritually advanced person, he doesn't care what people, materialistic people, they criticize you. Actually, he likes that. What is that? Bishoy amare pagala balaya angete dibe kadhuli. This Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that I'll be very fortunate when materialistic people call me mad and throw dirt on me. That'll be my very good fortune. Anyway, we're not saying that you have to live an uncomfortable life. You can live very simply but comfortably. Comfortably? Actually, you grow your own food and then you get better food than the people in the city. People in the city, they never get fresh food. They're full of so many anxieties and stress. So it's natural that when people read Prabhupada's books that they won't be interested in a materialistic way of life. And I'm seeing that just in the last, it's an ongoing trend among several of my Grihastha disciples who have well-paying jobs in the cities, and they're giving them up to come and live on the land and be Krishna conscious. I'm not telling them to do it, but they just don't want to go on with the materialistic way of life all their life. Trends. You see, English has got some word, it's difficult to translate it. And how would you translate trend? The pravaha, maybe? See, it becomes difficult to translate. Pravaha, maybe? How about that? That's Sanskrit. Tendency. Andaz is Hindi. Yeah. Maybe. How about vritti for trend? There's no difficult to find one word which will exactly fit it. Yeah. So this was Srila Prabhupada's vision. These Varnashram projects. Prakalp. Prakalp is Bengali for project. That's how they translate it. So it's a great challenge, no doubt, to establish such projects. You could say there's a lot of risk. Bhayam, vipatti. Vipatti is something different.
We are using so much English terms.
Not in the villages. You have to learn Telugu. But nevertheless it should be done, because otherwise you risk spoiling your valuable human form of life and that of your children also. It's a very great challenge. Where are the qualified brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, shudras? That means people actually possessing those qualities. Brahmana is supposed to live very simply and give spiritual knowledge to others, but we find often that brahmanas, they extract money from others and live very opulently. If they're a priest at a popular temple, they can, or if they're like a priest at some holy place or something like this. So to have real brahmanas who are they're not personally interested, they just want to help others. It's a great challenge to find such people. But the majority of members in any community would be Shudras, but no one wants to be called a Shudra. Of course, we should understand, among Vaishnavas, all are Vaishnavas. Vaishnava's position is the highest of all, because Krishna likes him. Chandalopi dvija shreshta hari bhakti parayanaha. Someone's from a Chandala family, but he's a devotee. He's better than the best of non-devotee Brahmins. And hari bhakti vihinascha Chandalopi naradama, something like that. That even if someone does not have Hari Bhakti, then they're lower than a Chandal. But practically, people have different inclinations. That's vritti. All different kinds of people are needed. But with the advent of equal rights and democracy, everything's upside down, ulta. The Shastra describes that the Brahmanas, they came from the mouth of the Mahapurush, from the head of the Mahapurush. So they're supposed to speak on behalf of the Supreme Lord and eat on behalf of the Supreme Lord. And the Kshatriyas came from the arms, or they sometimes said the arms, sometimes said the chest. The Vaishyas, they come from the stomach, and the Shudras from the legs. So they're all important. If you think, well, let's chop off the leg. I don't like my legs, I'll chop them off. Who would think of such a thing? So socially, the Shudras are in the lowest position. Lowest. Nimnanatam. But you wouldn't think that, then just we should mistreat them. You may think, what's the use of the head? The head doesn't do anything. The head doesn't do any work. It's just eating and enjoying. So cut off the head. But the head, or just like figuratively, the brahmanas, they give direction to society. In the legs, if they think, well, I'm carrying the rest of the body everywhere, then but I'm not being properly treated. But that's the job of the leg, to carry the body everywhere. No, the leg, not the Shudras. Leg has a vital function that should be recognized. So similarly, the Shudras, if no one does that work, then what will you do? Nowadays we see that it's often very difficult for the farmers. They can't get farm laborers. So then there's no production of food, and then the whole society is in a big problem. One reason there's no farm laborers because the government has these employment schemes where they pay people who they just sleep all day, and then they won't do any work. Stupid mismanagement. Udyog means?
Job.
Is it? Okay.
Employment.
In Hindi it means industry, right? Udyog means industry. Yeah. So it seems that the main, all these schemes that are made up by the Indian government, the main purpose they make up these schemes is how to put all the money in the ministers' pockets. That's the main purpose. Because they have Shudras in the government, Shudra mentality. Shudra in the sense that they have no higher understanding. It's just like if the leg thinks, well, why don't I eat? Why should the mouth eat? I will eat. So the hand should pick up the food and put it in the mouth. But if the leg thinks, I'll pick up the food and eat it myself, it's not going to work. Actually, in traditional society and what the Shudras were, they're better than anyone in the modern society, even the so-called high-class, respectable person. In the modern age, due to modern education, TV and everything, everyone is just actually just like an animal. We want to make these communities for devotees, but it's very difficult to build a community with people who are just thinking about themselves. Community means everyone acts within it for the benefit of everyone else. But if you're just thinking just about me, then how can there be any community? Srila Prabhupada gave an example from his practical life, some practical example, that two people came for an interview for a job. And the job was given to the person with less qualifications. And the interviewer, he explained that one of the persons was highly educated and the other one wasn't. But the one who was highly educated, when he went out, he left the door open. And the one who was not educated, he closed the door. So the interviewer said, the one who left the door open, he's lazy nature. Whereas the one who closed it, he may not know so much, but he can be trained. Recently I saw one of our devotees, he washed his cloth and he put it on the roof to dry. And he was just visiting that center for one day. He was just visiting this center for one day, and he washed his cloth and put it on the roof like that. But for his own convenience, he retied the clothesline and he left the bucket on the roof. And then his cloth was dry and he left. And he left the clothesline in the same position and the bucket on the roof. Now you may think, well, that's a very small thing, but it just shows he thinks he's some Raja or something, that he brought the bucket up and anyone else wants to use it has to go up and bring it down. And the clothesline, someone else has to untie it and put it back in the same position. Just not thinking at all about others, just only for his own little convenience, that's all. It's going to be very, very difficult to develop a community if people have such kind of attitudes. Community, of course, means people. I mean, there are buildings and roads and bring money and cows, but people. So it's not just a matter of building buildings and making plans, but it's people, and we have to bring people and interact with them properly, and they also have to be ready to interact in a civilized manner. So this training should be there from the beginning of life for the children. They must be disciplined. Unless they're disciplined, they'll grow up to be like that. They don't care about anyone else. In Salem, Gokul Chandra told me, it's just again and again and again he has to tell the devotees, don't leave your toothbrush, take it away when you're finished. Don't leave it in the bathroom so everyone has to come and get darshan of all these toothbrushes. It's very, just a very simple thing. It's just very difficult for people to learn that. So human life is meant for God realization. But first we have to become human beings, not just have a human body, but being as cultured as a hog, a dog, a camel, or an ass. So everything is possible by the power of the holy name and the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these projects, we're talking about farming, and that should be there. There should be. We should grow all our own food, produce our cloth, produce flowers, milk, ghee, everything. Flowers? Ghee. You said butter, but butter is something else. Huh? Dahi? Oh, they don't say ghee. Gritam. I see. Different. So, but the main activity is Hari Kirtan and protecting the cows. So many important things have to be demonstrated by these projects. Then we have to preach in all the adjoining villages. We see already in 3 villages close by, some people are taking a good interest. So Gorai Pali, we should make Goranga Pali. And Raghunath Puram should really be Raghunath Puram. And Sadhu Veli, everyone should be all sadhus. And all the surrounding villages, just make a complete wave of Krishna consciousness. Taranga. All the weavers, they'll be Hare Krishna. They go like this, isn't it? The weavers, they do like this. Is it handloom or what? Handloom. Yeah. They like that. I've seen in Bengal, they go like this. They have this. Like this, is it? One handloom and one. So they can go Hare Krishna as they're in rhythm. Sometimes you see people, they see our tilak and they think that looks strange. But in all this area we want to make it, if someone doesn't have tilak, we'll think they look strange. What's wrong with him? No tilak. It's in Maya. So, be Krishna conscious, preach. Srila Prabhupada said that from the farm, the sannyasi, from the central community, the sannyasis and brahmacharis, they can go out on bullock carts and preach in the area. Everyone will be happy unless they're demons. Nice kirtan, nice prasadam, who will object? Then you can also have nice katha and dramas of Krishna Leela, puppet shows. Another important point is in the West especially, and it's just gradually coming here slowly, there's a lot of ecological consciousness. I was sent a question recently, something about should humans take shelter of parrots who are higher on the ecological scale. I couldn't understand the question. What's the word for ecological in Sanskrit? In Telugu, there's any word? Paryavaranam. Vatavaran samanvay vishayam. Ecology, maybe you could say something. I just made up a word. You see, in Sanskrit, you can just make up words as you like. So yeah, I couldn't understand the question, maybe because of my lack of knowledge of ecological issues. But I don't think the sentence makes much. The question makes much sense. But anyway, maybe someone understands it. But the point from that is that there's a very strong ecological sense in the West. Chetna, Log Chetna. Anyway, it's your language. So it seems to me that like North Indian languages, they're closer to Sanskrit. I mean, the usage is different. They use the Sanskrit words in Telugu, but not with a different meaning, isn't it? Seems like that. So the people are realizing that we've, in the name of progress and science, and we've really messed up the planet in a very bad way. So that's something else our community should demonstrate, that we don't need all this destructive technology. One of my godbrothers, my old friend, Rancho Prabhu, he wrote a book called Hinduism and Ecology. Did you see that book? No. You didn't see that? No. I read it. Ecology. And he showed there that traditional Hindu culture is very eco-friendly. And actually all the cultures throughout the world were, because people realized that we have to live in this world, we can't just destroy everything. Just like, for instance, if you don't cut a tree unless you really have to. But if you do cut a tree, you have to do some puja to the spirits and like this. It has to be done in a very careful way. You just don't go and cut some tree down in traditional Indian culture. You don't kill living beings, you just don't kill them. In the beginning, when these pesticides were introduced, people didn't want to use them, especially in Gujarat. They didn't want to use pesticides because they know it's sinful to kill even a little bug. But nowadays they don't care, because farming is just for money, that's all. People sell their old cows and bulls to the butchers. They don't care anymore. They've lost that culture. They've become very sinful. So we should preach this by practical example, that Krishna is the Bhukta, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. Krishna is a friend of every living being. So we have no right to take away the life of any living being. And we should protect the earth. She's our mother, and she's the Shakti, she's the wife of Krishna. So all these points we should preach by practical example. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We want to do all this for Srila Prabhupada's pleasure. This was Srila Prabhupada wanted these projects. We want to do everything the way that Srila Prabhupada instructed us. Stick very closely to Srila Prabhupada. Then everything will be nice. Hare Krishna. Any question?